So today we have with us Pierre, owner of DuVin Pintor. He has 2 other locations, has an exciting opening coming up in San Diego, and also one in St. Martin's. It's kind of a great space. And for the people that, like me, have been able to spend some time with Pierre and spend some time in this place, getting to know it, I'm just going to take this in my hand because I don't like wit. I have always been so impressed with just all the people that you know. It's incredible. This space invites really amazing people, and it's been fun getting to know you and see how you move. You move different than most cats I know that ended up playing football, as a running back, coming from San Diego inner city kid to an art gallery wine guy, right? Kind of breaking the mold. Does this look like an art gallery wine guy to you, for those of you that are sitting here, right? Yeah, it kind of breaks that mold. And that's one of the things that I really like about you, is because we talk in the world of business, in the world of kind of development, there is a conversation that in the next 10 years we will see 100 years of change. And we are not that adaptable as humans right now, most of us. Many of us are not. And in order to face that kind of change, there's some fundamental things you have to come to grips with within yourself. And you have created this, what you call a vortex of creativity at DuVin Pintor.
Correct.
Yeah? And I think that you hit on that by the very nature of who you are, that adaptability. And what I'd love to do is kind of talk to you about where you came from, how you got to here, and what are the challenges or failures that really kind of crystallized for you how you were going to do what you do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So with that in mind, did a story pop in your head that you're like, man, I want to tell you, or do I got to prompt you some more?
No, I'm good. So I'm really an inner city kid from Chicago, by way of San Diego. I was born and raised in Chicago. My mom liked to call it, I have a Chicago style and a California vibe, because I move around kind of like a Californian, but my style is very Chicago. It's earthy, it's big city, and in San Diego it's kind of just laid back.
So is that like a deep dish pizza with like basil and prosciutto on it?
That could be.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. So I got a roughness with a real bougie side. And being an inner city kid from Chicago, some of you guys have heard this story before, but I learned how my aggressiveness from the speed of Chicago, how that city moves and works. The project I grew up in was called the Harold Ickes, and interesting enough, now that place has been gentrified, and it's you got people jogging around with dogs, and that wasn't a thing when I was growing up.
It's like the Jeffersons, moving on up.
Yeah.
I'm moving on up.
And I went to grammar school in Chinatown. So my project building was right next to Chinatown in Chicago. And then when I got to high school, I moved to San Diego. My real father lived in San Diego. Decent dude. I no longer talk to him, but it's a long story. We won't talk about that story.
Yeah.
However, San Diego, I went to high school there, played high school football there, and got recruited from out of San Diego.
Right.
And ended up coming to Utah. Took all 5 of my trips as a recruit, a college recruit, and wanted to come to Utah. I flew in here on my recruiting trip. It snowed the night before, and I was done when I came in on the plane. I knew where I wanted to go to school. The energy here was incredible for me. And it ended up being a great decision for me. I had a great college career, got a degree in philosophy, and still, a big, part of the school. I'm on the alumni club, on the varsity club, and so, that was...
Became a changing point in your life, eh?
It was huge.
Yeah.
It was a huge...
So you told me a story one time about, coming from the world that you came from, and then you went, I think, to Vancouver on a tournament, and you saw things in that world that you associated with in that space as a kid from an inner city that you did not believe were possible within the scope of what you imagined.
My friends, so I played basketball too. I was a great athlete, and I ended up playing basketball. I was on this all-star kind of AAU. It was kind of the start of AAU back then, and got a chance to travel to Canada. I was one of the 12 kids selected to go to play in this tournament in Vancouver, in Barton Central. We get off the plane, we get housed by a family.
What year is that? We need to dial that in because we're the same age. We could have played against each other,
Yeah, I'm 51, so that was probably...
I'm 51 too, so like we literally could have been playing against each other.
I was 15. It was my 15-year-old summer.
I know you won that tournament, or I would have said we probably kicked your ass, but...
No, we won. They had never seen...
The likes of you. Yeah.
Honestly, it was maybe 5 guys that I played with that all went D1. Marcus Liberty, I don't know if you guys remember him. He played the league for several years. His brother he had a twin brother. We had guys, and we had dudes. We went there. We was there for almost 4 weeks because back then the Christmas break was like a month almost. Remember?
Yeah.
And so we got there, and it was the crazy experience of my life. When my first off the plane, we drive to a store and we go in. This is wintertime, so they got their cars running. And I'm sitting in the car like, I guess I'm supposed to stay in the car and wait because they didn't turn the car off. And so I'm trying to tell them, hey, the car's running. They're like, no, it's cool. And I'm like,
you don't want to get cold, man.
Yeah, that was the thing. And I was like, where I'm from, the guy that don't even steal might drive away in your car. That's not even his deal, but you can't leave the car running. So, going in there, I mean, the family had an elevator in their house. That was really strange, and, but cool at the same time. It was really strange. It was drastic, being in the projects to, moving around with these unbelievable people, and this beauty, clean, and it was really interesting. But more importantly, when I got back, my friends thought I was lying. Like, they literally was like, this is not real. I'm like, no, it's like, this really happened, And
they couldn't believe the reality that you had faced because they hadn't experienced that themselves.
At all.
So what did that do to your psyche at that age when you come back from having this experience that was transformative for you? Is like, wow, this is a possibility, living in a place with no crime in the way that I think of it, with wealth that I could not even imagine, elevator in a house, like those things that you're facing that your friends are like, what?
Well,
what did that do to you?
I'll tell you what, me and about 3 of my core guys was having, we used to have these little parties, right? We're gonna get some grape juice, we're gonna get some honey buns, and we get some
honey buns and grape juice.
And we be like, we gonna have a party, right? Yeah. And we get a couple of girlfriends, or friend girls, I would say.
Yeah.
And we bring the friend girls, and we have a party. And I told them, I'm not living like this. Like, I remember vividly letting them know I will not be living like this. And it's always one of you guys like, man, you stupid, that is not real. And they was convinced that it wasn't real until they watched me go play college football.
Wow, that's a cool, so it instilled in you a drive for something far greater than you imagined was possible.
Not only just instilled, I saw it. so it allowed my mind to expand.
Yeah.
And I think that's whoever you are, I don't care who you are, how old you get. If your mind is not expanding to things that you can't visualize, we're missing a boat. And I think that's what it did. It just expanded my mind. I felt different. Every day I woke up, I was dreaming about this place. I never forget, for years I dreamed about that scope of environment.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why when I went to Penn State, I went to UCLA, I went to USC, and U of A, which is University of Arizona, where I was almost going to sign there, but Coach McBride got this job here. But when I came in,
it's a good thing U of A is a party school, man. You'd never cut through there.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, trust me, I know. But when I came here, having it snow before, that's really interesting. It's dawning on me now. What I saw in Vancouver is what I saw coming into Utah. Has the same kind of vibration, snow, and and I loved it. Like the energy was dope. They took us we went from the airport, and I came in with about 15 guys. Took us from the airport up immigration, and we just to show us the mountains. Came back down, and I committed before anybody in my class or any of the recruits. I went in the office. I talked to Coach Graves. I said, "Man, I'm done. I'm good. You call my mom and tell her I'm good."
Yeah.
And so that was a great experience and a great time.
So how do you go from, this kid that always been an athlete, I know there's some accolades that come with that, even as a young kid, that makes it into the university life as an athlete, you've got aspirations to go pro, and then you've got to transition at some point when you realize pro is not going to pan out for me the way I want it to. That's a really difficult mental transition, isn't it? To think, man, I'm going to be a football player, to now I got to figure a life out that's different than that.
So it was tough for a real short period. So it was two things that happened to me that I lucked out, or I manifested. My agent happened to be the dude, my first job out of college. I told him, if this doesn't work out, I'm coming to work for you. And he was like, you sure you want to do that? I go, well, you're the only person I know with a lot of money that kind of moves the way I want to move. And so either you're going to train me to be you, or I'm not signing with you. So he takes me on this field trip. Now this is a really heavy story. This is when I know there was a difference in the level of people's money. You college, you don't know jack. I don't know. So he comes to our ring ceremony. He says, "Come take a ride with me." I look at Coach Graves, and Coach Graves said, "Yeah, you need to go take that ride." So he drives around the 250, around I-80 and 215. We get out on 6200 South. In like that Cottonwood Heights area, and there's a long fence. You go down, right there, you turn, you make a right, and there's this long driveway. And we pull up in this house, and this house is freaking massive. It's like, 13,000 square feet, and all this crap. And I'm like, what is this? And so I'm in there, and I'm kind of looking at it, and we're going through it. He had just finished the home, and he said, "This is my home," and I was like, "Wow!" And my mind goes, I'm trying to relate something to it. I'm thinking Karl Malone, John Stockton. These dudes are, He was like, "Yeah, they can't afford this," and I was like, "What are you talking about?" So now I'm in this space where this dude is trying to convince me, one, to sign with him, and two, that my world is even different from rich people's world.
Yeah.
And so I made it clear. I got back in that car before he dropped me off. I was going to have a job if this football thing didn't work out. And which I was blessed. I never got hurt. I never had broken anything. So I can't complain about not going where I think I should have went for the sport.
Right.
So I never took it personal at all because I left the game, not unscathed. I never got hurt.
You gave it all you had.
Yeah, I
You
gave
walk away.
it. Yep, and I was cool.
Yeah.
So when I was done, with no hesitation, he hired me. My office was at Hill Air Force Base because I was a quality control guy. I knew nothing about it. I had to go through all this training and OSHA stuff. And I learned this stuff so quickly that he ended up making me his attaché. I didn't even know what that was. So I just married this guy and I ended up his driver, his bodyguard, his everything. I ended up, and plus moving around and traveling. But he taught me more about not quitting. The due diligence of being a business owner was my biggest deal. It was intelligence or what they say, not intelligence. Genius is not the thing. It's not the product. It's not the thing you're making. It's not the cool stuff. It's not quitting. That's the genius part. And I didn't know what that meant, but he taught me that. And then I go back to my football roots. Well, fourth thing this. You down 2 touchdowns. This is going down. I've been in those situations, and the team that doesn't quit, and I've watched guys across from me, and I know they're quitting. I can see it in their eyes that they cannot go further. And so what I did in my life was just keep going. I mean, this happened during COVID. This right here, this space. It didn't happen, during the best of times. Literally, I got here in May. I was in Chicago looking for a space. I couldn't find a space in Chicago. I came here. This space presented itself. We knocked down a bunch of walls, and this is what you have, DuVin Pintor. And this was last year, May. And I had no reason to be back in Utah with this much, consistency.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't quit. I just chose to finish the dynamic,
I really want to just kind of touch back on this idea of the skill that you learned in football, this idea of downs, right? You got 4 chances to make it a good try again, you get another 4. But if you give up, you don't get another chance. And the cool thing is there's a time limit too, so even if you don't make it to those 4 downs, you got to kick and move on, you got another chance, right? You keep this idea of never giving up and constantly coming back at it, you got another chance. It's powerful. And Angela Lee Duckworth, she says that grit or perseverance, what you were talking about, is the #1 attribute that indicates whether you'll succeed in any endeavor. And that's if you can learn the attributes that allow you to do that in the space of difficult times, that let you keep going, that's a powerful thing.
I have 5 words that I live by. 1 is loyalty, 2 is honor, 3 is respect, love, and perseverance. And to quickly break it down, loyalty, it has no circumstance. It's just this security thing that we know we are. Right? You're a loyal person. That means you can come to, if I do something wrong to you, you can come to me, you can chastise me, you can cuss me out, but you can't leave. That's loyalty. Right? You can correct me, I can accept it, but you can't leave me. You don't get to leave me. Right? And vice versa. I can come to you, I can correct you, but you don't get to lead them. It's like quality parents and good kids, right? You correct them, you do what you gotta do, and then you move on from it, and you learn and you build from it, right? It's the same, and then that takes you into a place of honor and a place of respect where you're just gonna do things. Your attempt is always gonna be to help and to make sense of something, right? And love is just intimacy. Hug me, touch me, let me know you care, right? That's an intimate thing. But people forget that you gotta keep going. You gotta persevere through this stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Through all the inconsistencies, the weird stuff, the insecurities, the doubt, all that stuff. And once you end up persevering through it, there's nothing but light on the end of that tunnel. That's all I've ever seen.
Yeah, I love it. So I just want to hit on two things that he said that I think are really telling. And there's Dr. Kristen Neff. She's done her whole life's research around this idea of self-compassion, and it's a creepy idea for a guy like me and most guys. This idea that you offer yourself comfort when you're facing a tough time, right? And you said you need to be able to have people around you that are loyal, that you can mess up, and they may chew you out a little bit, but you're still safe. They still love you. You're not cut off. And yet what I find that we do personally and internally within ourselves is we cut ourselves off when we make a mistake. This is what I see the most in men and women, is we make a mistake and we berate ourselves so violently that we're unable to face the reality of the problem that we're encountering. It's too painful. But when you have a place that you can land, and you know you're safe and loved, that's that compassion. So you got to give it to yourself as much as others. Then the other thing I was thinking is, you have moved through various circles of friends of different demographics, socioeconomic spaces, right? And yet you've maintained friends, I guarantee, throughout each space, but I bet you've had to shed friends too. And how have you determined the place where you say, you know what, this person I like, but they can't serve me, they're holding me back? How do you come to that conclusion and keep the friends around you that you need in order to rise to where you've risen?
Well, so it's three different types of friends. I had some cats I grew up with, Dale and Nikki. They was epiphany guys. They was dudes that kind of, this is a true story. We sitting on the couch at Nikki's house. Nikki and Dale had the great idea that they was going to come up. Back in the day, we used to say, we're gonna make them come up. And I knew what that meant. Y'all should do something real stupid, right? And the idea was, we're going to go steal a truck, drive it into the Asian man's, store that had all the good shoes and the starter jackets. And they go
This
out.
is sounding like a really good idea right now. Yeah.
That's what they thought. They go, they do the whole thing, they run somebody off the road, then they kill somebody, and now you got a whole lot of charges against you, and these dudes They end up doing 6 years. They got 10, they ended up doing 6 years. And we were going into our junior year.
Wow.
And both of them were great athletes. On some crazy epiphany, I don't know who was talking to them in their mind, but that's what they did. And then you have these other clowns who are
How old were they? You guys at the time?
So we was going into our junior year, so we was 16.
Wow, it's tragic.
Yeah.
Six years in prison at 16.
Yep, and
Wow.
this was California time. So you talking about back then?
Yeah.
They was giving. They could have did 10 years.
Yeah.
Back then.
Yeah.
It was tough for me too because I was there. I got up and I was like, yeah, I think I'm going home. I'm not doing that. That's not smart, So I could have been on that weird space.
Yeah, those are tough choices to make when you've got to separate yourself from the people that you're with that are making choices that you don't feel comfortable with. But it's hard, I think, for some people to find that due north and follow what's in their heart versus follow what they feel their peers are maybe pressuring them to do.
Yeah.
You know? So where did you find that within yourself, that resilience to do that?
I was a leader. You know, I lead. You don't get to tell me I got to go do something stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, I was the leader. Like, I felt like the things I were doing was smart. How I moved was smarter than that. And so having that attitude, but I was taught that too. You know, my mom instilled that you're the boss. You're the leader, you decide. You know, I got 4 kids and I try to teach them the same thing. Like, no one has to make a decision for you.
Yeah.
You know, you can wake up and choose, and they don't. And you don't have to choose. You know, sorrow. You have to choose. You know, and I know there's some tough shit out there. There's people who go through some stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, we need help conquering. There's real shit out here that people are going through, and so I don't minimize that. You know,
Yeah.
but I also push people to be a leader. You know, not a selfish leader, but
Yeah.
you know when it's time to make the right decision. You know, I believe in that.
So my guess is, you know, along your sports career, your business, all the things, you've had spaces where you have sat close to some success and then felt it, and then you've had spaces where you have not made it where you wanted to go. And how do you tell the difference? Can you tell the difference between when you're onto something and it's about to break through and you know if you hold out and persist, it'll happen, versus the image that comes to my mind is like that America's Got Talent, the one where Simon Cowell started doing the first one, the star one.
Anyone could be a star. Yeah.
Where you could sing and there'd always be somebody that would appear that could not carry a tune to save their lives.
Somewhere in
And they're in their mind, they're like, I'm doing this, and Simon would shatter their dream for them, right? But how do you, because there are many people that are not that, like, that are more aware than that, but I think sometimes when we're facing that moment of crisis in moving into something great, there are people that will be telling you, give up, this is never going to happen, and you've got to persist. Or you got to listen to the people that are around you and give up, because it's like Simon Cowell. You will never be a singer. And when he says that, sometimes you're like, yeah, you got to listen to that guy.
Well,
right?
I'm going to be honest with you. I think these people know. Look,
Yeah.
here's the math. Here's my math. I was an All-American football player, high school and college. We had a bye going down, and we ended up with a bye before we played against San Diego State. We played San Diego State the following week. We had a bye. I go down, the team goes down to BYU to watch, at the time, Marshall Faulk. I'm sitting in the stands, and I'm watching the dude warm up. And I'm looking at my defensive guys like, I can't do that. I'm an All-American. I got 4 or 5 touchdowns. I'm leading the league in rushing. And when I walked onto that side of that field and watched this dude warm up, I knew he was 10 times better than me as a football player. He went for 305 that night, and I told him next week is going to be a long day. But I just think it's some stuff that we just kind of know. It wasn't to say I wasn't going to play hard, I wasn't going to be prepared, I was scared, anything like that. I just knew what I was seeing. You just know the difference, right? You can look at a high school guy, and you can look at a college guy and be like, his feet moves differently. Even if the dude's talented, you're going to know the difference in the levels of what you're seeing. You know, and I think some people just, they're stubborn, but they know.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that sometimes we delude ourselves. And we sometimes delude ourselves out of chasing what we're really good at too. If we give in to that fear, if we don't want to listen to our heart. And I've seen it happen in my own life. I've seen it happen with people I coach. And so it's cool when you meet somebody that has learned the capacity to pressure themselves beyond that point where people think it's because you're going to have. I was interviewing a guy named Greg Reed, who's an incredible motivational speaker, and his whole thing is, I love what he said. You give us another aspect to it, but he also said, don't listen to advice from people who have not done what you're trying to accomplish, because they don't know. But if you're trying to be a singer and you're talking to Simon Cowell and he says you suck, well, you got a problem, right? If you're talking to me and I say you suck, I'm just some guy.
Right.
Don't talk to me about becoming a singer, right?
People.
But you added another layer to it, which I really like, which is this internal scope that you turn on to, and you got to really tune into that. You got to listen to that voice. If it's saying don't do it, is that really your voice, or is it you giving up because other people that don't know what they're talking about are telling you that?
And you just gotta have the wherewithal of your own skill set. You know, I know my skill set. I got a degree in philosophy. Well, I can communicate very well. I know art because I'm an artist, and people look at my art and they say it's good. It doesn't have to be great, but they can look at it and be like, oh, that's not amateur, right? So there's something in that people, can show you also. But it's also, it's like the person, you come into the house and, 10 people in there, and no one owns a business, no one owns a restaurant, but if you say, I'm going to open up a restaurant, what's the first thought? All restaurants fail.
90%.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, that's not true. That's really not true. Go to Texas. It's a restaurant on every corner. You just talk to the wrong guy. I need you to go talk to, the dudes with 5 restaurants that know how to run a restaurant. It's like art. People say this was going to fail. This was, you can't do it. You can't have a bunch of people around fine art and running around drinking and all that stuff. They told me to go away with that. That ain't going to work. The Arts Alliance in Houston said this is not a thing until they walked in and they seen 300 people in the building, and a bunch of them was buying art. It's like, well, maybe it is a thing. No, you guys don't sell art, you just show art. Well, art for me is a presence, it's a presentation, it's a feeling, it's an emotion. It should change people's mannerisms. You should come in here and have a cup of coffee and look at a piece, and it would change your day. It should make you, this is a vortex of creativity. It should change your day. Those are 3 things in grammar school that we all love. Gym, art, right? And the first recess because you was over the teacher. Think about it.
It's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And they took all that shit out of schools, and they wonder why the kids are going nuts.
Yeah.
All of that's gone. And then they blame it on money, and none of that really costs money. Maybe the paper and stuff were, but most kids were mixed medium artists from this, age.
Yeah.
And they didn't teach us that. They didn't teach us to hone and add to that energy. Well, DuVin Pintor is going to give that back. Not just young people, to adults, to people who care about art and music and everything. Look at all the stuff we do. Look at the friendships that's come because of this. To be honest with you, this dude has put it the best. I don't know if you've seen a post that he created a few months ago about DuVin Pintor. He has platformed it. I couldn't even say it, but this place is meant to bring people together. And we're here because of that.
I like art galleries. I go wherever I'm in a big city and there's a bunch of them. If I happen to see them, I go in them. But I will say this is the first art gallery I've ever walked in that I didn't feel like I had to keep my voice down and that I didn't feel like I was going to get in trouble. because I always feel like I'm going to be in trouble in proper places. And most art galleries are proper places, proper. And I walk in and I'm like, oh man, but here you walk in, you can chill, you get people hanging out, I do love it. I love the fact that art becomes a space where you can actually express instead of stifle, which is what I feel most art galleries are, this stifling sort of, this is what we're presenting to you, you're so lucky to see it, But this invites you into that creative environment, lets you know that you belong.
And also, I think it does well for artists. Like as an artist, I mean, I'll give you an example, Dallas. This is one of the most comfortable. He's worked he's got multiple degrees in art, but he's not uncomfortable moving around this environment, And I think anyone, it doesn't matter where you're from or what you do, we're just not uncomfortable moving around this environment, right? You can only go to a club so often, right? You go, it's cool, but, at the end of the day, if you're a woman, you got your head, and if you're a man, you're kind of confused, you're trying to have your confidence. Like, no, I don't want that. I want people to feel comfortable and safe and creative, even if you're a lawyer or whatever you do. This environment should bring out the creativeness, and it should help, it should assist in that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Now, Pierre's told us some stories. You got a kind of a sense of what he's done, brought himself through, sports into this transition where now he's a wine and art gallery guy from the world of sports with a philosophy degree that has probably got a secondary degree in rec management, like me. We talked about that. But if you have any questions, does anybody have any questions that you'd like to ask Pierre about anything he said or about what he's trying to accomplish, or anything come to mind? If you do, I'll hand you the mic and you can ask your question. Okay.
All right, Pierre. My name is Phil. I've kind of watched you move around for a while. Where do you draw the line with loyalty and abuse of friendship or abuse of your time? Because your time is the most important thing you have. So where do you draw that line?
I'm going to be honest with you, it's hard for me to draw that line because my time is consistent. I don't overvalue my time. So I have a hard time with drawing that line. Now where I do draw the line is when we as friends, as both men and women, cannot have a conversation about what I'm doing that bothers you. That's where I draw the line. Because for the most part, when people are doing that, they really, even from the start, they never had your back. It was always, it was always transitional, right? Is that the word? Transactional,
yeah.
Right? It's like a woman. If you find yourself in this transactional, I'll do this, I feel this way, if this is going down. If I do this, I feel this way, if this is going down. That's a transactional thing. I draw a line there. I don't need transactional friends. I need you to tell me the truth. I need to know the truth. It doesn't hurt me. What hurts me is when you can't tell me the truth, and then you go somewhere and you tell somebody else what you think the truth is. But the reason why you do that is because you can't really come talk to me because there might be another truth. So most people do that. And people that don't do that, you don't have to draw a line because you have a conversation. I'll give you a prime example. He was pissed off at me last week.
That was.
I can respect that. He came over there, but he also got to respect that Pierre's gonna tell you, hey, the show must go on. So you should have came and told me in the first place. I called you in the afternoon. And he was like, well, I guess you did call me. And so, and I said, well, I guess I probably should have went and whispered in your ear. And we're here now. Why? Because we are truly friends. We don't care who's right or wrong. We're going to fix it so everyone understands how we move, right? We move differently is why we're here right now. I can tell you right now, it's 10 people that I know would have never came back. And what happens, they lose good friends because they can't have a stupid conversation about what they think went wrong. We do it in our relationships with our women. We can literally not know something, assume a bunch of shit, and walk away. And that could be the furthest thing from the truth. Happens all the time. And then 10 years go past, you're like, well, I really didn't do that. I really wasn't, that's not how I really felt. So you don't have to do that. So that's why I draw a line. I draw a line at this space where you can't come talk to me, right? And if you think, or a person believes that time is being wasted, money is being wasted, this is being wasted, all we have to do is communicate about it, and then teach me if that's something you can teach, and you're better at that than me, then show me, right? That's what I'm gonna do to my brothers, with my brothers. I'm not gonna just bail on them, So I believe in that. That's the line I draw. People are not like that for the most part. At some point, they're not real in the first place, because they don't have a real conversation.
Yeah, I like that. For me, my friends come and tell me the problems that they have with me. They tell me the things that I do well too. If you have a problem with me and you talk to everybody but me, you're not my fucking friend, right? You're stirring the pot without me even knowing. And so I try not to do that to my friends. I try to yell at you in your face.
Good.
Yeah. I don't yell. I don't yell that much. Really, I don't. But yeah, no, I was thinking the same thing as you were talking about that. I was like, yeah, that's exactly right. Like, if I got a problem with you, I'm going to talk right into your face about it. And you're going to hear it from me, and I'm going to give you the chance to tell me that I'm totally wrong in my assumptions, because I often am, and which was the case, right? Like, my assumptions of what I thought was happening were different and your assumptions that you thought was happening were different, and when we discovered it, we came up with this idea of this talk show because we had this guy that was there that had helped produce Michael Jackson's album, and I thought I missed a fucking opportunity to get this guy on the stage and have people talk to him and find out about the epic adventures that he had gone through and really experience the greatness that this guy had within him that we didn't get to that day. I talked to him after. And so that's why we're doing this now, so that you can have the opportunity to start to really dive into knowing these people, because my tools are my tools, but they're performance tools which are standard for everybody. We can talk about them, but when you get to see them in action through somebody that's lived something, it brings more meaning. So, any other questions? All right.
So I guess my question is that every point for an entrepreneur's life, you have that aha moment, and when you're like, that's what my idea is going to be, and obviously yours has become about art. How has that been, being able to see that thing go from just an absolute idea through all the things you have to go through to create it, to being able to sit back and kind of enjoy that you never gave up on an idea that you have? Because you get to see it, you get to walk in and be like, there's some sort of gratification, you get to do that. But it's that aha moment that really is the thing that kind of changes your life. Because just like you and I, we come from the football thing. You use the game of football every day. I use the game of football every day in every decision that I make. And like when I started my business, it hit me like that, and nothing was going to stop me from doing that. And there's been all those ups and downs, but to be able to see that idea, water it, have it grow. Like, what's that kind of feel like for you?
Man, for me, it's like amazing, because I call my mom, and she's overwhelmed with even me trying to scale And initially, what the aha moment was, I was in the original gallery was called Center Stage Gallery. And it was my art, and it was about 2 other artists. And I was coming in there, and it was cool looking because of the art, but we weren't selling jack. Nothing was happening. And then we had these randoms come through, and people like it. And then one of my guys that played ball, he had just invested into a medical sales company. And so he starts bringing these doctors and executives in there to sell his product. They started buying art. And I was like, wow, this is a bigger thing. And then I went to meditate. I'm a meditator. I went to Galveston, and I went and kind of meditated on how to grow, how do you grow this thing into a more social environment, because it's just fine art's it's not social, it's pompous. And so, but the aha moment came with the name. I was in Galveston, mom is French, I love Latin, love Latin music, Latin style, and DuVin Pintor kind of wrote off my name as I'm looking for things to name this new gallery. And it popped in. Oh, some wine and art. And everything was based around that momentum. And I was done. I was fired. I was so fired up. Like you could, the aha moment is, after you run that first touchdown, they about to have a long day, or you make the first play, and you about to have 10 tackles. I felt crazy, like my energy, I'm out by the water. I just felt crazy. I came back. I stayed out there for maybe 6 days. I came back and literally was on the path to finding a bigger space, getting the logo done, and so yeah, that was the moment when the name came to fruition. But it was definitely after, my guy came in and was like, yeah, I like your space, we can do more to it. And I was like, oh, that's what I was doing. I'm here waiting for people. We don't have to wait for people. Look at this. You come in here enough, somebody's building a house, somebody's remodeling a house, somebody's gonna like something enough where they're just gonna walk out with it one day. It might not be that day, but sometimes it's enough energy going on and enough attraction, with art. And then educating people on art. But yeah, that was my deal. I was fired up.
Yeah, I came up all night. When I hit my aha moment, I went home and wrote my roommate $1 million check and said he's gonna be able to cash it one day. I hope that expired.
Yeah. Where does your roommate live? I might do a robbery tonight. Any other questions for Pierre?
Okay, so my question is, where do you see DuVin Pintor in the next 5 years?
Wow. That's a good question.
Thank you.
I'll be very frank. DuVin Pintor is not what I see in the next 5 years. I see DuVin Pintor with the family of people that we're creating, moving around. Like, you guys have no idea. Like, my dream is these people that I meet is that we can be in all these different cities and states hanging in our environment. That with people that didn't know what was created by us. Right? We know, you guys know me. You can touch me, you can feel me, you can call me, right? You can see me in the environment working. There's people out there we're gonna go in and we're gonna build 20 of these that's our babies, and then there's gonna be, some big giant conglomerate that wants to license this all around the world. But we will know what it feels like to do this, and we'll go teach these other environments the same thing. Now there's some change in the world I think that's gonna come from that. So that's kind of what that's where I see DuVin Pintor, and it's people like you guys that's there with me. I'm not there by myself. I don't separate myself, in this big conglomerate thing. I want to be close to the environment and live and love and learn, consistently from the environment.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. These are great questions. One more, if you've got one more, and then we're going to wrap it up. Does anybody have another question? Okay. So I just wanted to really quickly put you on the spot. This may or may not work out, but I know, like as you're describing that energy that you got when you had that aha moment and the drive that you found, my guess is it's like being in the zone in sports, right? When you just feel it, you got it, right? Are there things that you do in your daily life when you're facing, like you've decided I'm building this, regardless of what you want to do, once you get into the thick of it, to get to the end point, there's a lot of heartache and effort and blood, sweat, and tears to get there, right? So what do you do? Do you have a technique that you use to build yourself up to keep going that you could share with people?
So two things I do. Whenever I go to sleep, it doesn't matter what time, I'm always going to go to sleep with something that is a vibrational pull to something positive. Whether it's self-manifestation or something, I'm going to go to sleep to that. Every now and then, I'm going to go to sleep to something that makes me laugh really, really hard because you sleep better, you feel good. And when I wake up, I'm not fully woke, but in between that 5 o'clock and 6:30 deal, I'm going to recalibrate that with something positive that's, self-meditation that's going to get into my subconscious to help me fight the shenanigans through the day to keep building and manifesting something that happens positive. So I really started that years ago in college, listening to Abraham Hicks, and I haven't stopped it. So I try to do that.
Yes, Abraham Hicks is great. Yeah, that's awesome. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and performance is a mind state. If you want to constantly achieve it, there is a mind state that you've got to get yourself into in order to perform at your highest levels. And those that do it the best, when we see it on display, it's magical. Those that can continue to do it. I'll never forget, I'm Canadian. My brother had season's tickets to the Grizzlies, the new franchise in town. We were 4 seats behind the players' bench. It was just epic. They could hear what we said. We could just scream stuff at the players on the court. It was really fun. And Michael Jordan came. He was playing with the Wizards at the time. He had come out of retirement to play with this horrible team that needed his help. And he had a horrible game. And Greg Anthony, the point guard for the Grizzlies, it was in the second half. The Grizzlies were just dominating, which they were the worst team in the league. But they were dominating, and I loved it because I was a fan. And Greg Anthony, every time he was shooting, was running down the bench, pointing at Michael. And I'm screaming to Greg Anthony, and he could hear me, leave the giant alone. Don't poke the giant, right? He keeps doing it. Third time that he did it, Jordan signals the coach, walks out on the floor. He had, I think, 6 points that night from the first half. He ends up having a 40-point night. And the Grizzlies lost. So that mindset, that ability to switch yourself into the zone by great people, it is something you can train yourself to do more and more. You can get better at it. Now, Michael Jordan was a savant at it, but all of us can be better. And so what you said about this vibration and getting in is a really powerful thing. I love it. But I was thinking, if you guys are up for it, we'll do a little technique. I don't know if you guys want to do the greatness I see in you. Several of you have done that already. But if you want to come up, if I can get this group, we got as many of you can. We need an even number. I need you to form 2 rows. And we're not going to do this. I'm going to make you a little bit uncomfortable with each other. But you're also going to get to have an experience where you see the power of intent within your heart and how it can change you, okay? So come on up here, stand in front of me, some people, and you can face that way. And then I want somebody to come stand in front of her, right? Okay, Rochelle, right? And just all the way down, in pairs. I want you to pair off, okay? You've got a dog. This dog probably won't be able to participate in the way I was hoping. And we need, okay, we got one here. You two, you're gonna bow out? Okay. All right. Do you guys want to do the greatness? Those that have done the greatness, I've seen you. Do you want to do it again, or you're done with this?
Already in the position.
Well, I got another activity that's in the same position, so.
Let's do a new one.
I want to do a new one? Okay. So what I want you to do, it starts very similar, but what I want you to do is I want you to get really uncomfortable and just stare at each other's eyes. And just let all of that, the fact that you're going to fall in love a little bit, just fall away. It's okay. You can love this person. Right? And just stare at them in their eyes. And I want you to let your judgments roll free. We have judgments. Our brain is designed as a survival technique to judge things quickly and put things in boxes. So let your brain do that. It needs to. Now that you have judged this person completely, I want you to get really curious about who they are, about what got them here. The fact that your life is so eventful, so is this person's across from you. And just really, really simply, everybody that's closest to me, staying on my side, like on Pierre's side, I want you to look at this person across from you, ask them what their name is. And then I want you, the people closest to me, I want you to look this person in the eyes, and I want you to think of something if you were to never see this person again. What is one kind thing that you would like them to be left with if they were going to just be able to remember you forever? The one kind thing that you could leave them with that you would say. What do you see that you think would be the kind thing? It's got to be real, something you think. Don't just make up shit, right? Something real that you feel you see in them that you can leave. I don't care what it is. It could even be if all it is you got really cool shoes. That's okay. But I want you to dig deep, okay? And leave them with something that you see in them that you think is great. Okay, now I want you to switch sides and do the same thing. Okay, the people on the other side. I want you to take a look at this person and let your judgments go if you haven't already, and say something that you believe is great in them that you see. Now, how does that make you feel? How does that make you feel to hear something nice from somebody sitting, possibly a complete stranger sitting across from you, right? In some cases not. Makes you feel good, doesn't it? And when you can learn to see that in people just naturally, if you'll just allow yourself to see people in your world in that way, it will change the course of how you interact with others. Doors will open to you. You will find that people are seeing you in a new way because you see them. So look for the greatness in others at all times. And Pierre, I fucking see greatness in you, bro. And I'm so grateful for you to have us here, and I'm grateful for this new format. We will iron out the kinks in this program. But we got next week a guy named Michael Buster. Some of you guys know him. He has produced, so he was an actor. And back when the strike happened in the early 2000s, he was like, I need work. And so he changed, and he decided he wanted to produce. He got into producing. He has now produced 2 significant movies, award-winning. He does network television programs all the time. He's dialed in with some really cool stuff, and he's going to be with us next week. We're going to get into some really cool stories. He's got some fascinating things to talk about. So I hope to see you next week. Thank you for coming.